Yeah, I think this is probably the most interesting game of the weekend for me personally. I'm so interested to see what Middlesbrough can do at home against, you know, a team that most people have marked as relegation fodder this season. I think Ainsworth is getting life out of this QPR side, and I think he's going to set them up to frustrate. And yeah, I do think he'll get a draw. And as we mentioned before, I think in typical fashion, we will be facing Middlesbrough with a new manager bounce, having an international break to kind of get through to these players. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything from Middlesbrough. Obviously, losing 4-2 on the road to West Brom, a late-ish red card, but just in turmoil right now it seems, and obviously nowhere near good enough for where this team should be.
Once again for episode 5 of the EFL's Finest. It is, of course, our podcast where we take a deep dive into last weekend's drama in the Championship and look forward to this weekend's drama with not only the end of the transfer window, but of course the next round of matches. Joining me once again is Jacob, fresh off the back of a thriller down at well, I won't say a thriller, but more of a nail biter for Rovers with a squeaky 1-0 win. Did you manage to catch most of that game at the Boozer?
I did, yeah. I managed to get to the pub. Didn't make the long journey down on a Sunday, in truth. But yeah, I think most games, just like last season, are going to be nail biters for Rovers. Even more so with obviously the added injury time that we're seeing this season. But we did get a quite conservative 5 minutes, what used to be a lot, but now 5 minutes is obviously not a lot nowadays for injury time. So was quite lucky in that regard, but brilliant finish from Ryan Edges with his spaz leg, I like to call it. I'm not sure how he managed it. But yeah, few really good touches and then just belts it, doesn't give the keeper a chance, and a really good game plan going to one of the hardest away grounds we'll probably go to all
Yeah.
season.
It was a good response as well from the last weekend when we were losing to Hull, and I think out of the course of those two games, from a Rovers point of view, you were 3 points is not bad. Hull, when you think about Hull and Watford away, of course you probably would have expected the points to come the other way around. The win at the Hull, win against Hull, and then maybe a defeat against Watford, but all in all, not a bad haul for the month of August. You know, I think we're bubbling nicely, and I feel, again, we'll get to transfers in a little bit. If we are to get a few more additions in, it could really define our season. Really, could put us in a good stead, because we're proving to be tricky. We have played quite tricky, but a bunch of games so far. Rotherham away, last year was horrible. This year we got something out of it. West Brom, they're already starting to resurface from the opening day defeat against us. Tricky game to play, and getting one of these big boys out of the way on the road. So we're looking all right, in good shape, I think.
I'm just going to say, I mean, from last season, we beat West Brom, we lost away at Rotherham, we drew at home to Hull, and we drew away to Watford. So we've managed to get 7 points from those games, whereas last season we only got 5. So we have improved on last season with the same
Yeah,
fixtures
let's
anyway.
take a look at those fixtures, of course, as we I had a little, not, I haven't looked at the chart, but I've had a quick look at the results, and I think you did all right again, which is not good for me. But hey, we'll see. We'll do the deep diagnosis in a second. So let me actually bring up a thing on my screen so I can have a little look who got the goal, or remind myself who got the goals here, and of course get the super brew ready for us to have a little look at it. So, of course, starting with, where are you? Let me just open these up to remind ourselves some upsets again. We did see Ipswich lose their amazing 40-game run or whatever it is. That, of course, came to a crashing halt. And Leicester City left it late against Rotherham. But Hull City opened up with a 1-1 draw. Both you and I predicted a home win for Hull, and it looked like it was on the cards until Naki Wells on the score sheet to give Bristol City a much needed away point. As Bristol City, one of the teams that seem to be struggling, I would say struggling in mid-table, 14th spot. But realistically, when you look at that result, who was it? 2 points lost from Hull, or a big point gained for Hull for Bristol City?
I think Hull will be disappointed, I would say. Bristol have been patchy, haven't they? They had that good result opening day, didn't they? But since losing Alex Scott, it's they have looked a bit hit and miss, haven't they? Potentially not the dark horses for playoffs. Some maybe thought they would be. Now they've lost the talisman in midfield. Obviously, such a big loss, him going. But with Hull, obviously, come off, I would say, a lucky win against us. I think they can count themselves lucky that we squandered a couple of chances even with 10 men, and I would say it's 2 points drop.
Meanwhile, doesn't seem to be anything stopping these guys. Birmingham again, I think a late winner in that one against Plymouth. Let me remind myself, I can't see it. Late Jay Stansfield, a player that's been linked with a few clubs in the transfer window. Birmingham securing the deal, coming off the bench for the winner to dent Plymouth, who maybe a little bit hard done by in that game. But as we talked about last week, potential managers of the month. This guy Eustace, is it Eustace or is it the other one? I can't remember his name. But anyway, the Birmingham boss. Sorry,
I believe it's
Eustace, yeah. Sitting pretty in third, just Leicester, of course, Premier League team last season, doing better than on points. But what can we say about this Birmingham City bunch right now?
Just really riding that high, aren't they? Before a ball was kicked, I would have had Birmingham as mid-table, lower mid-table, as they always seem to be. And obviously, this could just be an early spark, an early bit of form. As we'll get onto with Ipswich, when that loss does inevitably come for Birmingham, how are they going to react? A good win at home against Plymouth, who've have looked challenging. I mean, obviously they put up a good fight against Southampton. Were unlucky to lose last minute. They seem to have been unlucky again here. But not pushovers by any means, as we'll come on to, like Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes, indeed, and that's a perfect segue into that one. Of course, both you and I got the result right, or the not score line, but very, very close as well. Cardiff, again, you got this one bang on the nose, 2-1 prediction there. I went with the one when both of us siding with Cardiff, and again they were. It was a tight old affair, last minute-ish, 98th minute penalty for Cardiff to seal the fate. Ryan went up from the spot to give Cardiff, is it their first win? I believe they're up and running now with their first win of the season, up to 17th spot. Dubbed a relegation 6-pointer early on, I don't know. I'm not really seeing anything between either of these sides right now to say that they're going to be anything but relegation candidates. Even though Cardiff have brought in Bowler, they brought in Ramsey, they brought in a few interesting fellas up top as well, but. A win, they're up and running, but maybe concerns for Sheffield Wednesday fans.
Yeah, most definitely. The Cardiff's business seems to remind me a bit of Reading's kind of business in recent years. Obviously, getting well-established names. Obviously Reading getting the likes of Drinkwater, Andy Carroll, and the like, but just potentially players who are not really motivated, don't have that kind of extra 10% in them to really want to get out of this league, sort of thing. As kind of our players, we've got some really young, hungry players, haven't we, who aren't names at all, but will give everything on a Saturday. And I do question whether maybe that's the same. Obviously, the likes of Aaron Ramsey, obviously coming towards the end of his career, and we'll see playing in the Championship as a step down when you've been at the likes of Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely cause for concern for Sheffield Wednesday anyway. It does seem the writings on the wall for this manager, you would think. Would not be surprised to see him obviously change manager leading into that international break. It just doesn't seem anything's working for him. They are scoring a couple of goals here and there, but it's unacceptable.
Yeah, it could be the first to go, and nobody wants that poison chalice to be them. But Another name also in the spotlight potentially is, of course, Sunderland, who picked up a decent point, you would imagine, against free spending, high spending Coventry City. And again, when you look at that 0-0 result, 2 points dropped from Coventry or a massive point won by Sunderland?
I would say with the current form Sunderland are in, you would probably say it's a point gained. Them going to Coventry, not an easy place to go. Coventry have had a couple decent results, but have looked a bit hit and miss overall. Looking at all their results, obviously they had that loss to Leicester, but they have got a result here and there too. Sunderland, it does seem like they're just going through a bit of a rough patch, doesn't it? I do question whether there's still a bit of a hangover. Obviously, they're coming off the back of beating Rotherham at home, but Rotherham at home for Sunderland would, as a Sunderland fan, you would kind of see as a formality. So, they've got Southampton next, Sunderland that at home. That will be a real test. And again, like you say, the writing could be on the wall for Mowbray. Does seem like the owner doesn't fancy him too much, and it could be playing an effect on the players. By the
Yeah, when I look at the scenario, not just with Mowbray, but with anybody right now heading into this final match before the international break, it does, transfer window slam shut. So whoever does come in for a club who does make that push to get rid of, whether it's Sheffield Wednesday, whether it's Middlesbrough, Sunderland, whoever, they're going to have to work with what they've got until January. So it's going to be quite crazy to think of a club to do that. But desperate times, desperate measures. Big relief perhaps over at the Den with Millwall picking up a win over Stoke City. Nisbet, a player that we were linked with again as the Rovers fans, getting his first goal, the only goal, and settling the Gary Rowett derby to get Millwall up and running. But Stoke, again, hit and miss. Don't know what you're going to get with the Stoke these days. So a big win for Millwall. They're up and running. Can they turn their season back on track to where they were last season?
I'm not sure personally. They obviously have been had a poor start. It's a huge win really to get that win at the Den as well. They lost their opening game at the Den, didn't they? So yeah, big win. And obviously Stoke have had a couple good results. Have been hit and miss, but like you said, just depends what Stoke turns up on the day, it would seem. But definitely a good win for Millwall to get that win at the Den and kind of shake off that playoff upset hangover we've kind of been talking about.
And just to elaborate, got that one bang on the nose, 1-0. So too shabby there. Of course, close but no cigar for Gareth Ainsworth. Kind of gave Southampton a bit of a shock before an old friend of ours, Adam Armstrong, getting his, fourth or something like that of the season. Looking pretty good for the top goal scoring honours right now. He could even set some records. I liked. You got this one spot on, 2-1 win as well. Well done to you, 3-0 for me. But maybe it's some hope for Gareth Ainsworth. He's at least not rolling over and taking it every which way another. So there seems to be a bit of fight for QPR. And currently, where are they in the mix? They're out the drop zone. There are teams like five teams worse off than them at this moment. So is there any hope for Gareth Ainsworth?
I would say so. I mean, obviously, coming off that absolute demolition at Vicarage Road opening day, they have bounced back and they have showed that they are playing for the manager. It would seem, they've had a couple good results since then, haven't they? To be fair to them, and they have been in games. Obviously, there's no shame in going away to St Mary's and losing by a 1-goal margin. Southampton will be up there this season, and obviously, when you've got the likes of Adam Armstrong up front, who is gonna probably push at this current rate for another 30-goal a season tally, it would seem. There's absolutely no shame in that, and it does seem Ainsworth is getting a tune out of these players for sure.
Yes, indeed they are. Again, they're not blowing teams out of the water just yet, Southampton, but doing well, and of course he's going to be up there in contention for the Manager of the Month gong, I would imagine, as well. Huddersfield Town, they look like they're in a bit of trouble. Norwich, on the other hand, look pretty red hot right now, sitting pretty in second. Wagner's got this team working. young Jonathan Rowe in the headlines, scoring a load of goals. 4-0 demolition job. You were closest with a 1-0 win. I gave Warnock a little bit of hope, but I guess you don't want to be playing Norwich right now. They look red hot.
No, definitely not. Obviously, coming off the back of this, and then they had that goal fest the week before as well, was it? I believe. So they're looking red hot right now, aren't they? I'm not really sure where it's come from. I know you obviously didn't rate their business too much in the summer. A lot of kind of well-known players, but not too many kind of out there. I mean, getting your Ashley Barnes, your Shane Duffys in, experienced players at this level, but not really ones who are going to get you off your seat, I suppose. But it just all seems to be working. Obviously, Wagner working his magic again, going back to Huddersfield. And yeah, I mean, can he replicate what he did with Huddersfield in that season? I suppose it seems like he's on course.
Yeah, 13 goals so far for Norwich. They have been a little leaky in the back, conceding 6 so far, but second in the table, and right here, right now, most importantly for them, better than the other East Anglian town, which is, of course, Ipswich, 7-goal thriller. Of course, Norwich scored 4, Ipswich conceded 4, but we're in this. They were in, gave a good account for themselves once again. So yes, the defeat has come, but a bit of fight back for Ipswich, maybe, just maybe. I did see Leeds getting something out of the game ahead of time. I just knew they were going to wake up at some point. And again, last season, there's a clear whole division between these two sides. So Ipswich, even though, and again, they've not really done anything. The window is vastly coming closer to shutting. They've not really bought many players in. But the mentality's still there, and again, we're going to hopefully see what they're going to perform next time. But 7 goals, Leeds 4-3, and Perot up and running with his first goal from Swansea.
I mean, you look at that, front three that Leeds put out, and it probably is Premier League quality, to be honest. What was there? With Nonto, Perot, and Sinistera. Being against a League One defence, it's night and day, really, isn't it? And fair play to Ipswich. They were 4-2 down, pulled it back to 4-3. But like you said, they did kind of have to wake up at some point, Leeds. I just didn't think it would be until the transfer window closed, with this massive kind of cloud hanging over Nonto and Sinistera, kind of where they're going to end up and whatnot, as we'll get on to later. But yeah, I mean, it's a case now of how Ipswich react. Are they going to now go into the market, potentially get a player or two after this loss? Kind of bit of a wake-up call potentially after, leaking 4 goals in at home. Obviously not ideal, but as mentioned, it is a Premier League forward line that. But yeah, it will be interesting. They've got a nice game next against Cardiff, to be fair, to bounce back from at home. But if they don't get a win against them, they could drop off after their first loss in 4 games.
Yeah, crazy stat. It is what on paper you would probably put as one of the nailed on results, but yeah, it could be a sticky one for them to, if they were to lose, then maybe the real Ipswich would show up there. And of course, this hoodoo that they this kind of black magic they put all over us, thinking that they're the bee's knees. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's just been that momentum trade. But meanwhile, Preston, they continue to get their results and are flying high nicely this season. 2-1 win over Swansea, who are a little like you have tipped them to struggle, haven't you, Swansea? And they're doing just that. So losing Perot this week, not the great antidote either for their recent run of form. They'll have money to spend, and we'll see if they are going to be spenders this week. But they need to find somebody fast, because Jerry Yates is a good signing, but I think he needs some reassurance or backup or some company, because they're struggling right now, Swansea.
Yeah, I mean, Yates, did well at Blackpool, and just to mention, obviously, old boy Rhodes has gone there and took his spot, hasn't he? But Yates, his goals came in drips and drabs over those 2 seasons with Blackpool in the Championship, didn't he? He did well at League One level, but I'm not sure personally whether he's a 20-goal a season man. And as I predicted, I did have Swansea as my kind of shock pick to go down, and maybe being proven right. But to be fair, North End are in a good bit of form. They're not blowing teams away, just like we haven't. And I guess when you've not got the firepower that a Leeds or a Leicester or a Norwich have at your disposal, in the Championship, you are just going to eke out a 1-goal win here and there, aren't you, in most games? And, Preston don't have that calibre of player, but they're on a really good run right now, to be fair to them. And, as I predicted and as you predicted, a routine win for them.
Business as usual. And again, despite our early indications that he could be in a bit of pressure, he's up there, sitting pretty in fifth, and could be out there for an outside sniff for Manager of the Month. We'll see. I don't know when they'll do the announcements. It's kind of strange when they do it. But in good shape are Preston, and good shape are Leicester, of course. They are the only team, 100% so far, 4 from 4, but a good fight back from Rotherham. I was keeping up to date with this one on the Sky Sports News or whatever. And Rotherham, Odonyema seems to be a handful, scored against us, back from suspension, scoring again. But Leicester, too much quality in the end to be outfought. And the former Premier League winners continue their decent start without really blowing people away.
Yeah, I mean, they're now the only team that are unbeaten. They're the only team rather that have won every game, should I say, 100% record, aren't they? But as we touched on last week, they have had quite a nice August in terms of fixtures, really. Probably Coventry at home being the hard game, that grudge match between the two. But yeah, as I've predicted and got right, I thought Rotherham would put up a fight at home. As you mentioned, I think there's just too much quality in that Leicester side, and it does seem like they're going to keep hold of some big players, and you do just anticipate that they probably are just too good for this league, really. Like you've said, they're not blowing teams away, but they're finding the feet, 100%, and probably will grow into that team who are just going to walk over this league and will start to blow teams away as we get further into the season, you would think.
Yeah, doing the thing as they do. Meanwhile, still without a win is Middlesbrough. 4-2 loss to West Brom. You went 3-0. I went with a 2-1. Very, again, seem to be very, West Brom, since their opening day defeat, look pretty solid. They're up and moving up to 7th now. But Middlesbrough, of course, not great. Very, very tough times. They also have money to spend. They've lost Chuba Akpom, gone to Ajax. Looking ahead, just had a quick look sneak peek. They do have QPR next, so that could be the game that I think we did talk about this actually, could be the game to make or break Michael Carrick. Lose that one, and who knows what happened. That you wouldn't have pinned the Middlesbrough QPR as a 6-pointer, but they seem to be like a deer in the headlights. I don't know what's gone wrong with them. But as a Rovers fan with Middlesbrough not too far away, I'm hoping this dizzy, weird Middlesbrough continue, because I'd like to get them where they are right now, and instead of some other place where someone else will have the decisions to make from the dugout, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, as we touched on last week, it would be typical that Carrick gets sacked just before during the international break, and then obviously roll on Rovers to have that new manager bounce game, as it just always seems to happen. But yeah, very tough times for Bury. Obviously, they started last season so poorly, didn't they? And as many pointed out, if Carrick have had them since the start of the season last year, they could have potentially got automatics, really, because they were just rock bottom and sinking under Warnock. Seems the same again, and is it going to take a similar sort of approach, sacking Carrick and bringing someone else in to potentially get them back to the playoffs? Obviously his stock was so high this summer with the links of West Ham and the likes of that Prem jobs. It's mental how football can change so quickly. Is there a hangover? who knows, I suppose. But it's going to be a really interesting game against QPR. Obviously, as we touched on before, QPR not seeming to roll over anymore. But if QPR do get a result against Borough, I do think that could be the end for Carrick, because I think the Borough owners will have set him targets of at least playoffs this year. You would have thought, and obviously massively underachieved.
Definitely, and this week, defining week again. They got money. They got money. Carrick's the guy in charge in desperate situations. Do you, as an owner, give Carrick all that money, or do you think, hang on a minute, maybe we have to be a little bit cautious with this money because we might have to get somebody else in with a different game plan? It is a very bizarre scenario as a Middlesbrough fan right now. But as for us as Rovers fans, we've got our own, off the field stuff to deal with a desperate need for players, with a board that's playing Sleepy Town and just, I don't know what they're doing, and whatever it is, it's not positive for the coach. But even though we are desperate for players in a lot of areas, we seem to be getting a little bit of a song out of our threadbare squad, young squad, with a big, I don't want to understate this. It was a great result for us against Watford. There's not many times I remember going to Watford and getting a good result. We have, I think, in recent times got a result, but it's always a tricky place to go. They're a tough team. They're going to be up there. I would have taken a point like we both predicted, but a big away win, great result, great goal, and hopefully maybe a bit of inspiration for those players that we may be in the mix for, perhaps, to think, this Rovers side, there is something about them. Maybe, if basically improving our stature when comparing us to a Stoke, or whether comparing us to a whole city, maybe just improving our stock, or at least our lure with these players like the Raki Sakis from Crystal Palace, or whatever his name is. All those players that are in the mix from a couple of championship clubs. Maybe today's performance, even though we were on the back foot, but hopefully improve our chances. Great result though on the road.
Oh, definitely. I think it was a game plan executed perfectly. I think we're always a side who, personally anyway, I think we're much better without the ball. I don't like us with the ball, to be honest. I don't think we're that good with the ball, but as a counter-attacking team, I think we're always a threat on the break, and obviously that is how our goal came today. And going to Watford away, it is going to be a case of that. And it was a game plan executed perfectly, a 1-0 snatch and grab, weren't it? And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, we're 2 points better off from our first 4 games than the games we had last season with the same fixtures. Probably I don't think there's any probably on paper a weaker squad this year than last season. Obviously, losing the likes of Diaz, Jack, Ayala, and we've brought in players, but we've lost our main man in Diaz. Thompson's just working magic, really, isn't he? With what he's got at his disposal, he's playing an 18-year-old up front, for God's sakes. With 10 games to his name at this level, it does kind of just show the difference, doesn't it, in kind of budgets and whatnot. And I can understand why, obviously, in the BBC Sport Lancashire interviews, he seems quite peeved off, because he's obviously a very ambitious guy. I think he knows we're a signing or 2 away from a real playoff push, and I'm just hope we get them over the line with only a few days left now. A striker and a centre back is what we need, and I would be confident of a playoff push if we were to get those through.
Indeed, that would be the case. That's what I believe the general feeling is, that I think Moran looked good coming on today in his brief cameo. I thought he a couple of good touches, had a good a shot at least. So I think the wide spot, maybe that's kind of taking care of that, but I think the minimum is a centre back and a striker. But having spoken to Watford fans, they just got one in this past week, but Birmingham are looking out for, everyone seems to be screaming out for a striker there. very high in demand with very limited supply. This is what the table looks like right here, right now. We'll get the Super Brew right in a second, but Leicester are flying high. 4 for Norwich, Birmingham, Southampton, Preston, and then Ipswich. Rovers are in ninth. Of course, going down, we have Borough, we have Huddersfield, and Sheffield Wednesday right now. And now, the moment Jacob wants to see, I guess, is the Super Brew. I've got to log in. I don't remember my password. Do I remember my password? Do I remember my anything, really? What is it? Is it this? I think. Let's go. I think we're cooking here. Let's get that. Go up and over here, up and over here, up and over here. Thinking about it, and I'm still in second. There's a bit of a gap opening up. Look at that. Can I zoom in? Yeah, there you go for all your leisure there. 7 points difference. Early days. It's a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I actually won this week. Wow, look at that. 15-14. So, wow. I made up some ground. It must have been that bad last week. But so I'm back in it. Even though there's a bit of a gap. 7 points, it looks like. So
we'll keep on going and we'll see how Jacob gets on.
We'll keep on going and we'll see how Jacob gets on with his picks very, very soon. So let's, of course, switch to the topic of the day. And that is transfers. Of course, it is the transfer window coming up this week. I posed Jacob with the possibility of some championship players making the moves. It's been, a steady transfer window across the championship. Maybe I'm seeing a handful of players making the switch, whether it is between championship clubs or making a switch to the Premier Leagues. Scott going from Bristol City to Bournemouth. Joel Perreault most recently going from Swansea to Leeds. That was a big money move. There's also players, from old Premier League clubs, your Leicesters, your Leeds. Some of them we'll elaborate on in a minute. Your Southamptons. Every day or every hour of the day, I'm seeing new ones. Preston Daka. I don't know how much he's featured for Leicester, but he's a guy in demand at the minute from Leicester. But we've outlined a handful of them, some by Jacob, some by me, and we're just going to go over the chances of these guys. These are the players that we expect to move this week. So we're going to start with this one, which is Notto coming at you from Leeds. We just did the live stream with the Rovers game, and a lot of people in the chat says he's going nowhere. But of course, there was a lot of talk pre-season, a lot of talk in the first couple of games, a lot of frustration from this youngster. The interest is there. Of course, I remember when he burst onto the scene last season. He's Italian. Is this guy Italian, right? Yeah, and I think he's already an international. So Everton have been quoted as one of the players, or one of the teams interested in this guy. But if right now it seems like matey boy Farker got him to agree to stay, or at least pull on the shirt one more time. Of course, he scored this past weekend. But Jacob here has earmarked this guy that he still believes that he could make the move with Everton amongst them. What he is young, he is raw, he's got Premier League games to his name and goals. So I could see the attraction of this guy. But what else makes you think that this guy's going to make the move?
I just think he has a certain X factor about him. Obviously, you're buying potential as well, aren't you? He's burst onto the scene last season and just got such pure pace, power, and as he's showing, he's got an eye for a goal. A real wild card, and I think that's something Everton are lacking really since losing Anthony Gordon in particular. They've got the likes of McNeil and whatnot, but I think they need a tricky winger like this. And there's too many players on it for Everton forward line are a bit safe, and this guy would really just spice it up for me. As I said, he's so young. But also, obviously, he has played a whole song and dance about wanting to leave. We've also the things on Twitter of flags and whatnot. Leeds fans not being best pleased regarding that. Obviously, getting his goal, and I thought I'd have a look through the comments regarding that goal, and Leeds fans himself, but some were saying not sure how to feel about him scoring. So I think if he does stay, he's got a lot of making up to do, and he probably will do. I mean, football fans have short memories, I suppose, when you're scoring goals for your team. But yeah, I think it'd be a good buy for Everton, and I think we're a few days left now. Calvert-Lewin getting injured. I think they need something, and I think this guy could be the guy.
Yeah, well, just having a quick look at the Premier League table, because I can only see there's going to be a move. It's going to be a move out of this division and to the top tier. You look at Wolves as well, struggling for goals. Bournemouth, I think they're also looking for a striker. Like I said, I think they were looking at Preston for Leicester. I know this is more of a Y boy, but Everton right now are desperate. And they are playing with a sort of cast of players that doesn't seem to be, because Dyche needs some fighters, needs something, some a bit of magic, and like you said, this guy can offer that. But it could be just swapping the badge for something different, because even if he does make a switch to Everton, it could be right back in the Championship next season with the Toffees, because I think it's going to take more than one man to save them at the moment. So I think Farke and the Leeds faithful have got to kind of reassure him and say, you know what, if you stick with the project here at Leeds, you could be back in the Premier League next season. Because like we've seen it with the Joe Rothwells or with even the Darrell Lenahans who make that move to a club that on paper might look in a better situation, but you might not. You might still be playing the same kind of football in 12 months' time. So the grass is not always greener. So for Notto, he might get a short stint at Premier League football, or he can even consider Everton as another stepping stone to somewhere else. So like a Richarlison went from Watford to Everton, Everton to Spurs. So we could see something like that along this lines. But if you had to put your money on it, your house on it, does he make a switch? I'm not just saying from Leeds or to Everton. Do you think he will be wearing the lily white shirt of Leeds come Saturday?
I'm gonna say moves after getting that goal. I think that may spark a bit more interest, and I think like I've said, I think Everton needs something. I think they'll make a couple of moves, Everton, and I can see this guy being one of them personally. I think he's really pushing for this move as well. What obviously just doesn't.
No, it does not. And if I was to go for a guess on this guy, because I think there's a couple Leeds players that could make a move. And when you look at the table, your Evertons are struggling. Sheffield United have got a little bit of money to spend, and I think I don't know if they're just resigned to the fact they're going to be back in the Championship next season. They've got McBurney leading the front. Bournemouth looking for a striker. Wolves perhaps. A Burnley done spending. I don't know. We've got Luton Town. I don't see him making the switch to go to Luton. So Everton, Bournemouth, maybe Wolves would be an interest. So I'm looking at also Leeds' team, the Sinister. I think the Sinister might stay. I don't think he's made an example of himself like Notto. But just for argument's sake, I will say he stays because you say he goes. Just, make it spicy. Let's go to the next one. Of course, I think we've got 5 here in the mix. So a couple of them are my curveballs. This guy, Che Adams. Che Adams. Again, you're pitching Notto to Everton, and there is credence to that. There is a lot of links in that. Che Adams is also getting a lot of attention from Everton as well. People saying before he even signed or before he even goes, people are already moaning that he's not good enough for Everton. He won't deliver the goods. But started off okay this season. I don't think he scored anything this weekend. I know Adams Armstrong got at least one of the goals. I don't know who got the other one. Trying to see right now. Were they? Well, maybe that's fueling the fire as well. That that are not involved at all. I've got a good suspicion that he will go. I think he will go. I think Adam Armstrong right now, whether he's playing in that weird midfield spot, which he did for Plymouth, against Plymouth, or whether move further forward. Teller's now gone. I know you included him in your list. He's gone. He's left to go to Leverkusen in the Bundesliga, so that's a done deal. So maybe there is still scope for Che Adams in this team now that Teller's gone. I think I'm not saying they wanted to sell Teller or they want to sell any of these big boys, but they've lost a few. They've lost Lavia, they've lost Ward-Prowse, they've long lost Teller, Livramento at the back. So, I guess maybe Teller's departure may allow Adam Armstrong to play more further forward and more wide, and of course leave that spot open in the middle for Che Adams. But my gut feeling is that this guy is going to go. I think Southampton have got some. They've invested in some youth from Manchester City. Got a couple of players in as well. I'm not necessarily a striker, but at this level, Che Adams scores goals at the Premier League. He might get 10 for an Everton. He might be a Sean Dyche kind of player. But again, Notto, Che Adams, they could do both. What are your thoughts on this guy?
I was surprised how, when I was looking at players for this, I was surprised how old he is. I believe he's 27, which, obviously as Everton could put you off a little bit. Prime sort of age, really, but for someone who is that kind of age, would probably expect more numbers than he has delivered in the past at Premier League level. As you say, and he probably, if he was to go to Everton, get him 10 goals this season, but he's never going to push for much more than that, really, you would think. I've heard, listening to TalkSport, apparently he's not too keen on Everton. Apparently he's weighing up other options, potentially. But Everton are desperate for a striker. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin is just so injury riddled, if I can get my words out, and has just got injured again, hasn't he? And as you're saying, he does strike me, Che Adams, as a kind of Sean Dyche striker, similar to maybe a Chris Wood sort of character, big bulky, isn't he? So, but equally, I could see him potentially staying at Southampton. Just because obviously, as I've heard, these rumours have not been too keen on Everton. But if I was him, I'd probably take the jump to Everton, and they are a big club, really. Everton, aren't they? Much a bigger club than
definitely. They're I wouldn't say a sleeping giant, but they should be, like I tend to do, top 10 this season. But right now, it's not looking great. It's not looking good for them at the moment, and everyone's already written them off for the season. So this was one of my picks. I think the next guy, we have this guy. This is Zian Fleming from Millwall. Another one of my picks. He was earmarked for a move to Burnley. Of course, Millwall were heavy spenders, or at least pretty active in the market. They brought in Nisbet. I think they brought in Joe Bryan at the back. So two players of high appeal. Nisbet got his first goal. There could be a lot of money in this move. I know they got him for peanuts, like $1 million or something from over in the Dutch league. Ripped it up last season. Very good player. Could be the Gustavo Hamer. I know he's not as bulky as it was. Could be the Gustavo Hamer of this year if he sticks around. I think he did great last season, first season. The admirers are there after his one season in England. And do you I know Burnley were quoted and they were looking at them. They have been pretty active, Burnley, in the market, buying a lot of players from abroad. Do you anticipate Fleming? I know it's my pick to make the move from Millwall now, so late towards the end of the window, or do you think he would more likely stick around for what could be a tough old slog? His stock is high right now. His stock is pretty good. I know he's not really burst on the scene this season. I don't know. I'm not really doing a deep dive into Millwall's matches at the minute. So I'm expecting he's playing, but he's not really getting the goals or in the headlines as much as he was last season. So firstly, from your own point of view, as somebody watching from afar, what do you think? Do you think he will still be here?
It does strike me as a Burnley type signing, I must admit. They don't really spend big money. It just seems for the past, under the new owners anyway, it's a lot of, 10, 20 million signings here and there. And you would kind of put him into that price range, wouldn't you? I think if Millwall were to sell him, I think they could, write off any chances of a similar sort of season to last season, knocking on the playoff doors. They obviously have struggled these first few games. Obviously, they got that win today, which could kickstart their season. But if they lose this guy, I'm not sure how happy Rowett would be about that personally. So late on in the window too, and Millwall not the type to spend money either. So I think if they're going to give this season a real good go, they need to keep him. And I think with how late it is in the window, I would anticipate he stays and they try and give another playoff push this season.
Well, let me rephrase that now to a different perspective. Let's just say you were this guy, Fleming himself, or maybe even the Millwall owner, but whoever owns them these days. Of course, things have gone off this behind the scenes with the passing of their own. I don't know who's making all the decisions off the field. But when you take a guy from last season, you spent $1 million on him. Stock is very high right now. He's sought after, one of the standouts I thought last season. And again, so far the signs that player is not there at the moment. Would you sell him now with his stock high? Take a gamble or sell him now with his stock very high. Or take a gamble where because he might be a one-season wonder. He might be god awful this season. I doubt it, but basically what it boils down to: sell him now for big money, 15 million. Take a chance that he's gonna, because we saw it with Bradley Dack. We had a chance to sell him West Brom, I think 15, 20 million way back when. We said no. 2 ACLs later, he's out, gone for free. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money here. He could generate 15, 20 million right now, which could go a long way for the club. When you look at it from a Blackburn Rovers standpoint, we're looking at Adam Wharton as the banker to make us 20 odd million or something like that in the future, which could provide some good financial security for the club and maybe even invest. This is probably one of the most sellable assets we all have had in a long time. I thought Wallace was one that slipped through their fingers. Not really slipped through the fingers. Very good player. Did good dead ball set specialist. Die hard for Millwall and they lose him for free. So from a different point of view, if you were Fleming and you knew that maybe I should go right now whether my stock is high, take a chance with Burnley or ride it out with Millwall and see if I can get better than Burnley next year.
I think if I was the player, I would probably push for the move. I do think Millwall are a team that are always going to be there or thereabouts. But unfortunately, I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they spend enough to really break into that playoffs. And even if they were, I think they would struggle to win it. From an owner standpoint, it's a case of how ambitious you want to be, whether you want to roll the dice. Look at us last season with Diaz. We had offers coming in 8 million or so, weren't we, with a player with a year left, and we gambled, and obviously the gamble didn't pay off, but we were very close. So it's a game of risk, isn't it? And obviously the ultimate risk and reward, and the ultimate reward is obviously making the Premier League, and that can just change a club's fortunes entirely, can't it? So it's what kind of ambitions you sort of have, obviously from a short-term, long-term perspective, and if they really back the manager and believe he could, give Millwall a playoff season, you would be saying let's give him Fleming for the season, and if it doesn't work out, you're probably selling him for probably half what you get now, I suppose, next season if he were to have a bit of a poorish season. you'd probably be looking to get 5, 6, 7 million for him next summer, wouldn't you?
I think again, I think his opportunity to move is gone. I think to cash in. Of course, I think they could still cash in on him between now and Friday or what have you. But it just, Millwall would then be like a kid in the candy store with £5 in his pocket going crazy. Well, it would kind of waste it or just make some stupid moves, which, because come the end of this week or come Friday and you have money like a Middlesbrough, people are going to be ramping up those prices for certain players, and I think Millwall could fall into that category if they were to sell this guy. So I believe, I think he can play at the Premier League. I think Burnley would have been nice for him. It would have been a good fit, but I just think he's missed a chance, or they missed a chance to get that deal over the line. Next up, another one I picked is Jack Clarke, ripping it up last season with Sunderland. Of course, not great start for Sunderland again. The Six-Fingered Freaks have been interested in Jack Clarke, as are a number of players. Of course, once under the books of QPR, then burst on, kind of made the big money move to Spurs. Didn't really work out there. This guy's still very young. I don't even know how old he is. Might be like 22 or something. It might even be less than that. I don't know. I'm going to bring him up on here. He's 22. Wide man, valued around about 12 million euros, give or take. It would be a good cash cow for Sunderland again, but it might be a little too late for any reinforcements or reinvestment. But just like before, just like Fleming, just like anybody, there could be a ceiling for these players, like, price-wise. Do Sunderland cash in on this guy, do you think?
Again, I think it's kind of similar to Millwall. I think if you're really wanting to push for playoffs, you have to keep these type of players for me. Else it just doesn't send the right message. As I mentioned, Diaz, but even before that, keeping the likes of Rothwell, when we could have offloaded him to Bournemouth for a substantial fee for someone with only 6 months left. It were like 4 or 5 million, weren't it? I think it just sends the wrong message. And Sunderland's owner seems like an ambitious guy, but every player has his price, doesn't it? But with such little time left in the window, you get 12 million for this guy from Burnley. You're then rushing about trying to find someone. Clubs are then bumping up their price, knowing you've just got 12 million in the bank. It's not a good position to be in, is it? So I suppose we'll see. I think it could also boil down to how confident the owner is in Mowbray as well, really. See how this result goes next weekend versus Southampton, I suppose. But this will be an interesting one. But I do think he'll stay. I think maybe I did see the links earlier on in the window, but I think maybe the time for this transfer is maybe past.
Yeah. And again, it would be interesting. And again, if it was to happen, I think it would have to happen within the next 48 hours, and then give Mowbray some cash, I guess, to try and find it, because they're already suffering from losing Diallo, of course, on the loan from last season. They seem to be starved of creativity. Again, another team. I know they got that Stewart fella, when fit, he can get goals. I think his name's Stewart. I can't remember. Ross Stewart, I think. And a player that is still sellable. I think he has 1 year left of his deal or something, which doesn't seem to be getting any progress to kind of reamping that contract. So they seem to be starving for a striker. They brought some foreigner in. I don't know his name. Portuguese guy, again, not really burst onto the scene just yet. But I think if they were to sell, it would be in the next 48 hours to give some hope. But again, you play that risk, you roll the dice, and have that money in your pocket, and people will know you've got that money in your pocket, and then suddenly the players that you're linking with, because I'm what I've read, a player from outside the division, Johnson Clark-Harris from Peterborough, is of the attention of 2 or 3, maybe 4 Championship clubs. If suddenly 12 million comes into the hands of Sunderland, and they are one of them, suddenly, and they're in the conversation, there might be maybe an extra 0 on the end of it, or at least a couple of digits higher than what they first thought they were going to get. So it is a delicate scenario to play in, and I think I agree with you on this one. I think if they had strengthened already, and they still might, then Clark may be up for grabs, but I just think they can't afford to lose him. And I don't know his contract situation. I don't know when his contract expires, but I think he's been there not that long, so I still think he has a couple of years. So I'm agreeing with you on this one. I do think he will stay for this one. I think the last one, again, I think I just cherry picked a bunch of mine. This one, I think there's legs in this. Chris Willock, QPR. I was going to put Ilias Chair in here. I think either one or both. Well, no, I think one or the other will go. Either Ilias Chair or Chris Willock. Middlesbrough, Bristol City, two teams we know for sure have money in their pockets, looking for attacking players. Middlesbrough losing Chuba Akpom to, I think, 10 million or something like that. And of course, Ag Scott going to Bournemouth for 20 odd million. So two teams that have money. This guy, again, I also heard some grumblings in the forum, the Rovers forum. Do you spend much time in that forum? I tell you what, oh man, it's grim. It's grim in there. But you know, there are some nuggets that come out and are true, but it's pretty grim. But some people were saying that we were in conversation with this one, £2 million deal, maybe 4 million. So a player that could be onto Rovers. I think that was just a mumbling. I don't think realistically we have anything. But this guy can be a difference maker. Maybe a major loss for QPR. And again, if you are one of the teams with money, surely the price is going to be a little bit different if you do come with wads of cash hanging out your pockets. What's your recollection of this guy? And do you expect him to still be wearing the blue and white hoops of QPR come Saturday?
Yeah, I think this is a tough one. I think 2 to 4 million for a player who's definitely championship proven is a steal, really. I think he's proven the past couple seasons that, when QPR have been in and around the playoffs, more so the season before last. But he's a quality player at this level. Obviously, his brother plays for Newcastle as well. So kind of got good pedigree behind him in that regard. But I think obviously, he would be tempted to potentially move to a Middlesbrough. If I was to go out with the two, I think Middlesbrough will turn their season around in truth. I think they are just too good to be doing what they're doing right now, just like they were last season. But again, it kind of, what statement does this say if QPR were to sell him? Obviously, they're struggling as it is, and I do think Ainsworth is starting to get a tune out of these players, but it would be quite demoralising for the squad really if they were to lose either Chair or Willock. Two of their biggest players and best players, aren't they? And how much of a chance would you give them if they were to lose one of them? Don't know. Be an interesting one for sure, but if I were to say, does he stay or leave? I think I'll go with a move to Middlesbrough. If I were to go for what will happen.
Yeah, and not been. Yes, it's losing Dix at the back there. That's what like. If I looked at QPR last season, there was 4 or 5 players I would say wouldn't mind taking over at my club. Rovers, of course. The goalkeeper I thought was pretty good. Dane, he's gone to Middlesbrough. Of course, Dix went to Bristol City. That's a strange move. I didn't ever imagine that. I know we were linked with Lyndon Dykes. I don't know if you would say, would you take Lyndon Dykes? Like if you said, hang on, wait. So, do you take Lyndon Dykes or nothing at all up front? Would you take Lyndon Dykes or nothing at all? You'd rather take Lyndon Dykes. I'm sure you would rather have another face in the door than not. So, not that I would want him.
I probably would.
So yeah, I was thinking maybe we could take him. Chair and this guy would be the other one. You've already lost 2 of those in Dix and Dang at the back. The third one, and I know Dykes is not the most romantic of strikers and forwards and stuff like that. He's not going to, he'll get you a couple of penalties and a few goals, maybe 10 at the end of the season, but. you're one of your most creative players here. You get rid of him or Chair, one or the other, or both. And then I think the writing's already on the wall for a QPR side that not too long ago were top of the table with Beale and the rest. So interesting. It will be an interesting one for QPR. Keep them both there. You give yourself a little bit of creative outlet. You give yourselves a little bit of hope. Because then Chair, Willock, Dykes up top. You still got those three, plus some youth coming through the ranks. And they made that signing, I think, Steve Cook at the back, which will provide some leadership moving forward. But yeah, you said gone for the move. I think he will probably go, whether it is Middlesbrough or Bristol City or somebody else. I think they're gonna lose one of these, and I think they'll lose this one, and then I think Chair will go January or what have you, and then you probably look at QPR Italy.
I think both of them are too good for QPR's current position. Obviously, I think they've kind of had the chance now to make playoffs. It seems to have passed them by, unfortunately for them. But yeah, I think obviously with the current state, obviously under Ainsworth, it's not looking great, is it? I just obviously we've been here as Rovers fans under Coyle. You do just lose your best players. Ben Marshall was to go, and Duffy and Hanley. It just happens. Rhodes.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement that he will be gone come Saturday. And that's all the players that we have. Of course, there could be other movers and shakers. On a Rovers point of view, I don't know if you've been looking at it or reading between the lines. John Buckley not involved today, not involved on the bench, not involved in the under-21s. A player that we as Rovers fans probably anticipated to be a Rover for a few years. Do you think he's on the move?
That would be an interesting one for sure. I mean, obviously there was the murmurings of him going to Sunderland January just gone, obviously, and also Dak did eventually make that move. Whether Buckley gets reunited with Mowbray and gets put in the false nine again, I guess time will tell. But yeah, it's been an interesting one with Buckley. Obviously, I think Adam Wharton's kind of stole his thunder a little bit, hasn't he? I think Buckley is the player Adam Wharton should be right now. He's kind of just died off, I suppose. He had a couple of good moments here and there last season, but that injury, struggling to get into the team over Morton, who many Rovers fans didn't rate at all, and he was struggling to get in over him. I do just question whether he fits into this side right now. And yeah, I think maybe a move would be the best thing for him. He played in that League Cup game at home and he just looked disinterested. He should be running a game like that against Walsall at home, and it was nothing of the sort. He got himself a goal, but against League Two opposition at home, you would expect him to get something, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and if he was to go, surely it's going to be one in, one out at this stage. We can't be, making our squad even less than what we have right now, because we are like threadbare, and we're having young kids, 18-year-olds coming off, getting their appearances. So, and I think JDT kind of referred to that a little bit in the pre-match for this Watford game, that he kind of flagged up the point about what about players going out. So we kind of maybe aligned to that. There might be some activity. So you would think, one in, one out, perhaps.
Well, as he said, if someone goes, is that number going to get increased? What I get promised is that 4 players going to go to 5 if we lose a player. I guess we'll see. I mean, we only lost Dak in the midfield, and obviously Dak's your number 10, who we kind of replaced 2 in 1 really with Moran replacing Diaz and Dak, it would seem. Obviously Buckley more of a deep lying midfielder, and we've brought in Sondre. So would we get another player through the door? I don't know. Obviously Garrett's probably going to be a bit more influential this season. But time will tell. But I mean, if he was to get a permanent move, I would be shocked. I could maybe see more of a loan. But then again, if he was to get a loan, you would be thinking it would be Championship level. I think he's too good for League One. I think he just needs a team who's in need of a deep-lying, creative midfielder. And at this moment in time, we've got Travis, we've got Adam Wharton, we've got Sondre, we're just ahead of him. And you would think even maybe Garrett's ahead of him.
So if I was to push it, do you think we'll lose one of our sort of first team members that we're currently on the books right here, right now, on Sunday, the 27th of August? Do you think we'll lose one of our first team 22, whatever?
I think the writing could be on the wall, with, obviously not being a part of the match day squad, not being part of the under-21s, and, Thompson has showed in the past that he does like to put first teamers in the under-21s for fitness reasons. So I think the writing's on the wall there. You would think I would say he's going to get a loan move. In terms of any other players, I can't see any more outgoings personally. I'm just hoping, as I've mentioned, striking a centre half, and I won't lose much sleep over Buckley going personally.
Yeah, it's brutal there by Jacob, but hey, it's needs must, and it might do him well. Of course, I think he just needs. I don't know. Maybe he just irked him the wrong way and just fell out of favour. And I think alone, if there's any hope for him at a Rovers shirt, I don't know what his contract is like. Alone might be the tonic. He might come back a better player, and we'll have to see who or what happens with that. Okay, let's kick on forward to the next round of games. Of course, coming at you this weekend. Let me gear up for this, and of course, the final game before the international break. So start off with Sunderland up against Southampton, the Battle of the S's at the Stadium of Light. Sunderland could do with themselves a result. They're currently in 18th. A win could shoot them up to 7th. So not too bad. And of course, Southampton flying high, yet to taste defeat. You have gone with, as a reminder, a draw. I've gone with a cheeky 1-0 win for Mowbray. Maybe it's just a soft spot for him, and still not convinced with the Russell Martin, the thing that's going on over there. But you have backed a draw, and if you are right, who would be the happier?
I think out of the two, I think Sunderland would be happier with that. As we mentioned before, they're going through a bit of a torrid time, aren't they? Only the one win so far against Rotherham at home. But, it's a long old trip for Southampton all the way up to the northeast. Not been blowing teams away by any means. I've been squeaking 1-goal wins here and there. And I were tempted for a 2-1 Southampton win in truth. But I just think with the Stadium of Light, it is a fortress. And I do think the fans will pull the Mackhams over the line for a 1-1 draw. And I think more Sunderland fans would take that right now in truth.
Yeah, I have backed the Mowbray with that Stadium of Light to sing them over the line. It is an early kickoff as well, so one of a handful of games there, 3 of them early kickoffs on that Saturday. Next up is another one of those early kickoffs. It's the Gary Rowett derby, of course. Birmingham, Millwall at St Andrews. Of course, a win for the Brummies could put them top of the bloody table, and a win for Millwall could see them into the playoffs, into 6th if everything goes their way. You went with a cheeky 2-0 win, as did I, opting for Birmingham, who just like the wind of momentum, or the wheels of momentum, are cooking nicely for Birmingham. And you would probably think the international break coming at the wrong time. They just want to keep on playing. It's 2-0 against Millwall. Looking good and contender to be top of the table.
Yeah, most definitely, like you say, international break coming at an annoying time for Brummie fans, but lots of reasons to be happy right now. And I just think Millwall on the road rather will struggle going to St Andrews right now, just as any team will. An encouraging win for them after few poor results before that. Obviously, they got that win away at the Riverside, didn't they? But anyway, it seems anyone can beat Middlesbrough as of now. But yeah, I think Birmingham will just have too much, and I think it is going to be another case of let's see when they lose, how do they react, and I think then we'll get more of a gauge of what Birmingham we're going to get this season.
And Again, a chat with a couple of Birmingham City fans screaming out for a striker, even though a couple of them already, Scotty Hogan's already scoring goals. So we'll see if they're going to be active as well. Next up, Swansea struggling into 20th spot right now. If everything goes against them, they could be in the drop zone. Bristol City in 14th, doing all right. Just the one fixture. Bonus, get crazy. You've gone with a 3-0 win for Swansea. I've gone with a draw, giving a little bit of hope over in Wales. And we'll see how well they do. So you're going for a big win for Swansea. You're going against the grain, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I meant 3-0 for Bristol, to be honest.
You want me to flip that around?
I may have botched that one. Yeah, if you don't mind.
We'll flip that around. Okay, well, we'll keep talking, keep elaborating why you're going big 3-0 the other way.
Yeah, I think as I've touched on before, I'm not too confident of Swansea this season. I think obviously this is going to be a bit of a grudge match. Obviously Bristol, just well, I mean, some people do say they're a Welsh team, but just outside of Wales, aren't they? And they have been hit and miss, Bristol. I'm just not seeing any signs of life from Swansea at all this season. You know, are they to get a win yet? I don't believe they are.
Bristol City have one win so far. They Swansea have yet to get a win. A couple of draws to their name so far. So Swansea could do with a result over in Wales. I'm with you. I don't see a win for Swansea, but grinding out some home wins, a home point is crucial. But they need to start turning draws into wins. Otherwise, your Nostradamus moment of predicting the future could turn out to be right. So
I'm just not sure after losing Parole whether they have that quality to turn draws into wins, as you say. And I think Yates is a good Championship player, but I think he's good for 10 goals. He's not on the same level as Parole, is he? And yeah, I'm obviously changing manager as well. That can't have helped. I imagine the style of play is completely different as to the style of play Russell Martin were trying to incorporate with his 70% every game. Just a lot of change very quickly for Swansea and not much ambitious business done either to go.
Yeah, and that Perot transfer still ringing in their ears. You would imagine that should they have accepted that, they would have somebody lined up to come on in to kind of fill the void. But football's a funny old game, and they might have just taken the money and ran. Coventry against Watford at the Rico. Coventry again, stuttered start into 12th. Watford, of course, where are they now these days? They're down to 50th, of course. I thought they were good today, Watford. A little bit unlucky with a couple of shots against the bar in the woodwork. But this is an away day, and you have gone with, where's my mouse? You've got, I can't bloody move it. Where is it? There we go. You've gone with the draw. I've gone with the draw. Evens, kind of Stevens. And yet another game where Coventry yet to, well, they've won once this season, but another draw and not a win for Coventry. Will they be worried about this start?
Yeah, I think potentially. I think obviously there's been a lot of moving parts. They've lost their two best players in Hamer and Gyökeres, haven't they? They've spent big, and you know, you can't always expect even these big money signings to hit the ground running. But there will be cause for concern there because they really have rolled the dice this season with the money they've spent. I mean, they're a club that don't even own their stadium, so you got to think how big of a risk it is. But they have, you know, paid big money to get a player like Ellis Sims in. I think Coventry would be disappointed if they drew this game, but I just saw enough signs from Watford today, and I do think they can count themselves quite unlucky. That Mateus in particular really impressed me, and it's not often a player from the opposition side impresses me. But he took more than a few good shots just coming in off that left side today, didn't they? Bending him and hit the crossbar, forced a save onto the post. So you know, there's woodwork separating Watford from 2 goals today, and yeah, I think they could and should be able to grind out a draw away at Coventry, who have had a bit of a topsy-turvy start.
Yeah, both sides in languishing in mid-table at the minute. Next up, what is already at the minute, you can dub it as a 6 pointer down the foot. It is Middlesbrough with just the 1 point up against QPR with the 3 points. Under pressure, Carrick perhaps, and I think last chance saloon to get something out of it. You've gone with the draw, so you potentially have earmarked Carrick for the chop. And again, if you are right, I think that's a good point for QPR considering where they are with their own scenarios. I've gone with the Middlesbrough win. I think they've got to do it, and somehow, some way, somehow. I think they were. I didn't see the game, but a very close encounter between them and West Brom on the road. I think they. It is a bit of a not a kitchen sink thing, but basically they've got to get something out of it. And when I say get something, they need the 3 points. A draw, I don't think is good enough. A draw, and I think the axe cometh, and we will see the first managerial sacking in Michael Carrick, and a draw or less. So it's a win or bust for me for Carrick. But you've given indication that the life within QPR and the axe possibly coming.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most interesting game of the weekend for me personally. I'm so interested to see what Middlesbrough can do at home against, a team that most people have marked as relegation fodder this season. I think Ainsworth is getting life out of this QPR side, and I think he's going to set them up to frustrate. And I do think he'll get a draw. And as we mentioned before, I think in typical fashion, we will be facing Middlesbrough with a new manager bounce, having, an international break to kind of get through to these players. But I'm not seeing anything from Middlesbrough. Obviously, losing 4-2 on the road to West Brom, a late-ish red card, but just in turmoil right now, it seems, and obviously nowhere near good enough for where this team should be. But I think QPR, I think maybe people underestimate them a little bit. I think they've got something to give, and I do think they'll give Middlesbrough a good game at the Riverside, just like Huddersfield did the other week. They went up there and got themselves a point too. I can see it just being a similar sort of game.
So what you're saying is Gareth Ainsworth is going to outlast Carrick in the hot seat. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, who would have thought that after that Watford result? But I do believe that will be the case.
Crazy. Meanwhile, can Ipswich bounce back against Cardiff? Both of us going with an Ipswich win here. I think with that defeat and the manner of that defeat against Leeds, I'm actually more convinced now a little bit about the Ipswich Town belief or the mantra that's going around that they could be playoff contenders. I saw the fight back. Even though Leeds for me are a decent side, whether or not it's chaotic or not with the transfer scenario. But I just, again, last season there's a clear division between these two teams. Just the never say die attitude from Ipswich. I'm encouraged now for them to possibly be this season's Sunderland, to maybe make a push for the playoffs. And again, if the rumours are true that they've got money to spend, it could be a crazy week transfer-wise for them, and we might see a different sort of 11, or at least a different squad to complete the season. But if they don't, if this is the team that's going to complete the season, and there's no more additions, then I do think a mid-table season will be where Ipswich at. But still, decent stuff, decent fight back against the Leeds, and of course Cardiff. Got a lot of new moving parts, but just I think that's what Josh Bowler is. It's kind of like he is a good player, individual, but is he a team player? I don't know. And 2-1 win for you, 2-0 win for me. And you're a part of the Ipswich Town fanboys.
Yeah, I think as you've mentioned, obviously it's probably unfortunate timing to come up against Leeds with that front three. It looks scary on paper, really. Not a front three I would want to be coming up against as a Rovers fan. But I think this is a good game for Ipswich to bounce back from their first defeat in 40 at home against a Cardiff side that to me, in probably the 5 weakest teams in this league, especially at the minute anyway. They have scored a couple goals here and there, so I am giving them that. And obviously, coming off the back of the loss, how are Ipswich going to react? I was tempted to go over 2-0, but I thought maybe a bit of a closer game after potentially losing that momentum now. But if Ipswich were to lose this game at home, then could be a real eye opener potentially. But in the comments last week, we had more than a few Ipswich fans saying with this current squad they would be more than happy with mid-table, and if they weren't to do much more business now, I think that probably will be where they end up. And I think most fans can be happy with that for a first season back for a long time for Ipswich.
Yeah, and of course on the receiving end or on the good end of that match, it was Leeds who got their first win of the season, up to 13th right now. Still a little bit out of playoffs, even if they were to get a win this weekend against Sheffield Wednesday, they'll be outside the top 6. But you've gone convincing, 4-0. I've gone 3-0, so both of us expecting the real Leeds to stand up. And of course, when this game does kick off, we will know, if not Sinistera, the Bamfords of the world, the Meislers or whatever his name is between the sticks, are going to be Leeds players. Are they going to be here for at least a good chunk of the season? And I think they'll perform with a resounding yes. And a 3-0 win for me, 4-0 win for you.
Yeah, I think Sheffield Wednesday are just dead as a duck right now, aren't they? And Leeds at home, Ellen Road, will be a bit of a grudge match, an old Yorkshire affair. Yeah, I can just see him blowing him out the water, even if Nanto was to leave or Sinistera. I just don't see anything from Sheffield Wednesday in truth. And if it isn't Carrick, if it isn't Ainsworth, it will be the Sheffield Wednesday manager who's the first to go, it seems. And I can confidently say after this weekend, with what we anticipate to happen, he probably will be losing his job, you would think.
Yeah, that would be if we are right, which looks very much on the cards. It'll be 5 defeats in the spin and no lifeline, despite scoring 4 goals. That's just 1 less than Stoke in 10th. So take that from what you will. Next up, we have Leicester against Hull City at the King Power, is that what they call it? Both of us going with home wins. You've gone with a 3-1. I've gone with a not squeaky bum, but a narrow 2-1 win. Again, kind of they're just winning. You've gone with a bit more flair. Me with a 3-1 win. They could be a Leicester side that losing a few key players in Daka, potentially in Inacio, also a player that could be on the move. But regardless, I think with the transfer window in mind, we still think too powerful, too good for a Hull City side that have been spending a little bit of money and trying to strengthen their team a little bit. I think they're about to dump 5 million on an Aston Villa player, so they've got money to spend and doing all right now in 8th.
Yeah, and it depends what Hull side turns up, really. Obviously, they had that really convincing win at home against Sheffield Wednesday, didn't they? 4-2, was it? Obviously, not so convincing against us, but then, a result 1-1 at home to Bristol. I think, as I mentioned before, probably 2 points drop for Hull there, you would feel. I think any side going away to Leicester is going to struggle. And yeah, I'm not overly convinced with Hull to give them anything from this game. And I see them getting a goal. I think they've got goals in their team for sure with Connolly, Delap, Tufan, whatever his name is in midfield. But Leicester, just too much. I think they'll keep hold of Iheanacho. Dewsbury, it seems like he's going to stay, potentially. Those Liverpool rumours seem to have died down. So even with Pats and Daka leaving, they've still got Vardy, Iheanacho, which at this level is, together a combined 30 goals at least this season, you would think.
Yeah, they should be too good, too strong for Hull City, especially at home. Next up, we have Plymouth Argyle against Rovers. A long away day for Rovers. A very busy week, 3 away days in the bounce, including the Harrogate Town. Come Wednesday, shirts all around. You've gone with a draw, I think. I've gone with an away day win. I think Rovers' tail will be up well, the tail's up right now. I'm hoping the tail will still be up against Wednesday. I know we had a chat with Millie before game. She thinks it should be a walkover for Rovers, and realistically, it should if we take it seriously. But you never know. You never know. It's the cup. So hopefully we get a win. If we get a win against Harrogate, which we should, I'm believing in us here to end the stint strongly and maybe even into the playoffs early doors. But you played a little bit more cautiously, 1-1 against the Green Army.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a long old week. This obviously playing on a Sunday doesn't help. And then obviously all the way back up to Yorkshire now for Wednesday. We probably will put our B team out with some kids in there, you would think, as we did against Walsall, but then all the way back down to the southwest to Plymouth. So, you know, down up. Not ideal by any means for us. And I just think getting that win today on the road, I couldn't see us getting another win on the road back to back. It's just not very Rovers. And I think Plymouth have been unlucky with some of the results, it seems. And I think they are due a bit of luck. So I've given them the benefit of a doubt. I've gone with a 1-1. And we're not a team either who blow teams out of the water, are we? So, and to be honest, would I take a point away at Plymouth? Probably would. It's a long old away trip, that, and I think we look at the results. I don't think that would be bad really from our first five, would it?
No, you're spot on. I would take a point if you offered me right now, but I've just got a sneaky feeling that we might salvage the lot. Next up, Rotherham, struggling a little bit. The only point they got so far is at Rovers. They take on flying high Norwich City, who just look toast right now. They look so good. You've gone 3-1 away one. I've got 3-0 away. So we're both expecting the Canaries to take all 3 points and potentially be top of the pops, depending on what goes on with Leicester.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned before, that Fred for Rotherham seems a player. Did well for Wickham a couple of seasons ago in the Championship under Ainsworth, didn't he? But I think in similar fashion, Leicester went there the other week, weren't it? And this weekend and got a result, didn't they? I think Norwich are flying high right now. And yeah, seems they've got goals galore, doesn't it? So we're tempted for a 2-1 as I predicted for Leicester, but with the amount of goals they're banging in right now, I've gone with a 3-1, been a bit more ambitious. Even though it will be a long old trip for him all the way up to Yorkshire, but yeah, I can see him making quick work of Rotherham in truth.
Yeah, difficult. It's definitely a difficult match. I still think Rotherham are. I think they could be in a little bit of trouble. I think a lot of outsiders have seen the signs. We saw the signs firsthand that there's a team in there. And I think maybe when Middlesbrough get going, they could get sucked into the relegation zone. But this, I think, is just one of those games, and you don't really want to be playing Norwich right now. They're just cooking with gas, and they're just going to be the latest of the line to face a bit of a tonking from Norwich. Next up, it's the Alex Neil derby. It's Stoke City up against Preston North End. You've gone with a draw, which will continue Preston's unbeaten start. I've gone with a 2-1 win, which will see them take a first L of the campaign and project Stoke City on the brink of the playoffs with a 2-1 win. I think that Bet 365 Stoke are a bit more awkward to beat, but you've banked on Lowe potentially strengthening his case for manager of the month, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not sure he will get manager of the month with, obviously Leicester have been 100% so far, but I think it does depend which Stoke side turn up. They have been so up and down, haven't they, with their results? But Preston have been a constant, obviously yet to lose and seem quite solid. So I've give them a chance of going there, getting a result, and I think most teams would be happy to go to the Bet 365, which is a tough old away day, isn't it? And get a result.
Yeah, 1-1. You're nice 2-1 for me, and then wrapping it up there. It is West Brom. It is Huddersfield. Again, Warnock could be in that conversation alongside Carrick, alongside the Zisco at Sheffield Wednesday. As could be, could they make a decision? And again, would it be too late, make a decision after the transfer window slam shop? Anyway, Huddersfield to lose and West Brom to win again, which would again put them probably in the playoffs with 10 points. Surprised to see West Brom doing so well?
No, not really. I think Corberan is a brilliant manager at this level, and he proved it last season. West Brom were sinking, and he come in and turned around, and didn't get as many plaudits as Carrick did, because obviously Carrick ultimately got them into the playoffs, but Corberan had a lot less time, to be fair, and managed to take a West Brom side that couldn't score for toffee last season into a final day playoff conversation, and they were only a couple points away from it. I think more just tonking Huddersfield, just because Huddersfield just are in free fall, it seems. It's harsh, but he's done such a brilliant job last season. Warnock, he's stuck with him, whereas I think a lot of people would have expected him to bow out after keeping him up. But as we mentioned, obviously, do the Huddersfield owners, are they not backing him because they don't see obviously a project there? Obviously, he wouldn't want a project there with his age and whatnot. But if you aren't going to back him and you are just going to expect him to work miracles again, it's not very good. It's not a good plan, anyways, for sure. I think it probably would have been better for both parties for Huddersfield to part ways with Warnock, get a manager in with a plan, a bit of ambition, and back the guy. Obviously, it doesn't seem like they have those funds. Else, you would think that would be the case. They would be getting someone in and spending money, but they just made absolutely no transfer business at all. Where obviously they clearly needed to off the back of last season. They were dead and buried at one point, and it took Warnock magic to keep them up. But I can't see the same happening again. I think it's looking more and more week by week that Huddersfield are potentially going to be going down this
It does. Those are grim times for them. And if we both have our way, yours is on the right man. This is what the table will look like. We'll start with me. No, start with you. We'll Leicester. You'll be top. Norwich, of course, will be in second. We have both that pretty much identical. Then we both have Birmingham and Ipswich in third and fourth. You have Southampton in fifth, and then Preston in sixth. Going down, Rotherham, Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday. Mine's pretty much carbon copy of that. Bar West Brom up to fifth, Southampton to sixth. I have Rovers in seventh. You have them in ninth. But and then cause for concern, you would think, in your eyes, with Middlesbrough on 2 points. Question marks will be raised by Carrick. Maybe I don't think Taylor at Rotherham. I think he's just doing what he does. Really, Rotherham aren't going to be in that conversation. Huddersfield, you would think a team that was in the Premier League not too long ago would have to have some serious consideration and, like you said, some thought about what they do. And then Sheffield Wednesday as well, a big team back into the Championship. I think they have hopes of at least sticking around, or they plan on sticking around, but they will be in a very, very dire situation themselves. So lots of thought and consideration to have. But if you, I guess we have one more match day to talk before the international break technically. But do you expect we will see the first casualty before the return from the international break? Do you think we'll have a new manager in, or at least a departure?
I do, to be honest. If I was to bet on it, I think I would go with Sheffield Wednesday out of the current options. I think obviously Carrick's definitely up there. I think Ainsworth has bought maybe enough credit in the bank with some of the performances as of late. I think they're showing they're competitive enough anyway. So I think I would go between Sheffield Wednesday and Middlesbrough, but out of the two, I would go with Wednesday's manager.
Yeah, I expect there will be a casualty after this week's matches here, I've got Middlesbrough hanging on. I think they'll scrape something by them, but the Wednesday Huddersfield are definitely in the spotlight. Maybe Watford also a bit of a concern as well, mid-table, not really, but it's still early days. Anyway. Make sure you all subscribe, thumbs up, hit the little bell. Of course, appreciate Jacob coming by for the podcast. And yeah, hopefully Rovers continue, and we'll see how we get on before the week is out. And of course, we'll get back to you next week, hopefully, with a transfer roundup of everything that's gone on this week and throughout the summer. But until then, subscribe, and of course, we're done.